April 30th, 2005, and I watched Black Friday with some friends at the Berkeley, at the Pacific Film Archive, which is an incredibly good place to watch movies if you guys don't go there much, but it's a great place. And I had heard about the movie. It made some noise in India, there was some controversy around it, but it was on a subject matter that all of us in India felt very strongly about, and knew that this was a movie that we should probably make that effort to cross the bay and watch. We all went there. We went very early. We didn't know how far Berkeley was. The place was empty. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll come back. Had some dinner. It was at sometime in the evening. Came back, there was no place. It was full. It was like chock-a-block full. I watched the movie. It completely blew my mind. And I became a fan. And I can't believe that today, on another Friday, I'm here in front of all of you at a place like this, at the Carriage House, a place where I've watched many performances. I'm here talking to you, Anurag. I'm thrilled. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So I'm going to, I did some preparation this time. It's very difficult to have a conversation with somebody who's got such a huge body of work. And then behind us we have someone else who's written possibly the Great Indian crime novel, also the Great Indian TV show. And next to me is the guy who's made two of the Great Indian crime movies, Gangs of Wasseypur and then Black Friday, and many others, but those two ones definitely are the ones that, on the topic of crime and punishment, are the ones that I keep thinking of. So, I want to focus my questions on the creative process, on how you make movies. I want to ask you about the Netflix collaboration. I want to discuss some of your movies. I have some clips which will hopefully work. And yeah, and then of course, with a subject like you, things can go anywhere. So let's start with, since we are in the Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is a startup incubator. We have companies which have started here. We have PayPal Mafia, who started a lot of companies in the Bay Area, which have become iconic companies. And in a way, you, Anurag, you came into to Bombay, into the film industry on your own. You did not have anybody that brought you there. You made that entry. You started on that path. You have created a whole industry around your films and, of course, the kind of movies that you make. I'd love to know more about that. Tell us about those days.
Those days means the beginning days?
The beginning days, yeah.
The beginning days was kind of like I was very naive and driven, in the sense I just wanted to be in the movies and I had no idea to do what. And I used to consume a lot of movies. And I was either acting on stage or I was writing. And I could write a lot. My only skill I had at that time was I could handwrite 100 pages a day. And that was also the time the daily soap operas were kind of making their way into India, and they needed somebody who could churn out 3 episodes a day, and that was me. And that was time of Shanti.
Yes. Yes.
And all those places. And at the same time, the concept was created by somebody else, it was being made by somebody else. I was a newcomer, I was a kid, I was like literally 19, 20 years old. And they wanted somebody who could write and somebody who would not ask for credit and would not charge money. So I did a lot of ghostwriting then. And it worked for me because I just kept writing, and there's somebody else who was deciding whether what can be used, what can't be used. And when you see what you write and what gets used on screen and what gets eliminated out, it kind of prepared me. It taught me how to write a script. And what works, what doesn't work, what gets thrown out in the edit, what doesn't. Without being blamed for what didn't work. And sometimes you felt like, oh, what worked was also done by me, but nobody knows that. But I got a lot of practice on somebody else's name, on somebody else's expense.
No, I think that's the part when I was talking about the Silicon Valley side of it. It's just because you start off somewhere, you at a early stage where you are learning, and the fact that you had a place like that to learn, and it's really a great way to get to.
The industry was such at that time. Industry was controlled by film families, and they did not let outsiders in. And in a way, because I was not asking for anything, I just wanted experience. And I enjoyed the process. I still enjoy the process. So it was easy for me to get in because they didn't mind a person who would work for free and did not ask for anything.
Folks, unpaid internship always works. You made that jump from soap operas to movies.
It happened. I was lucky in the sense I was writing so much and I met Ram Gopal Verma. And he was looking for a writer who would work with him on a movie, and his idea was Satya, and he had no idea whether the movie will get made or not. Because he was going through that phase where he wanted to make this film, but he had to make 10 other films in order to make that film. So I was with him for the longest time. And I was working on Satya for at least 2.5, 3 years. And it was my film school, because I learned everything on that one film. I was the casting director, I was the writer, I was the assistant, I was doing post-production. That one film taught me everything. The only thing that film did not have to offer to anyone was a lot of money, but at that time, when you're so driven by something, you don't think of money. And it was a great opportunity to learn. And Satya was the film that actually led me to Mission Kashmir, where I met Vikram for the first time. Because back in 2001, I remember me and Vikram Chandra and Sukethu Mehta, all three were working on Mission Kashmir.
Yes.
While Vikram was researching Sacred Games. And Sukethu was researching Maximum City, and I was also working on Black Friday. And somehow we met the same people.
There's a Rakesh Mardia connection with all three of them.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I should say a Hussain Zaidi connection.
Yeah, Hussain Zaidi was the main person who led us to many other things.
Great. Now I was watching a making of featurette for Black Friday, and Hussain Zaidi was there. Yes. So that brings us to Black Friday, and that was your first movie. You were making TV shows. You had
Black Friday was actually meant to be a TV show. It was meant to be one of the first series. It was commissioned for Aaj Tak as a 6-part series, and Aaj Tak was a new news channel. And I was hired to write Black Friday as a writer. Aditya Bhattacharya was supposed to be the director of the series. Yeah. And I wrote the 6 episodes, and when they read the episodes, they were like, we can't really put it out there. And then the whole idea of Black Friday as a series, which was to be produced by Midday and Aaj Tak, was getting shelved. Yeah. And by then I was so much in love with the project, I said, why can't we make this as a film? And nobody saw it as a film. So Aditya Bhattacharya very gracefully said, you see it as a film. And I had made 5 by then.
Yeah.
And he said, why don't you make a film? I said, but you're the director. He said, no, you see it as a film, I don't see it as a film. You make the film. And he stepped back. And suddenly I had a film in my hand, in my lab, and Midday had very limited resources. They had never produced a film. And somehow that happened. It just, everybody, because I think Black Friday would not have happened if Midday was a traditional film producer, or I was a director who was very aware of what to do and what not to do. So Black Friday happened because everybody involved with the film was very naive. I think that's when you can make a film like that, because we did not know the consequences of what we were doing.
It did, and it totally broke every mold of movies.
Yeah, and it also became a burden for us because everybody wants us to go there again, but we become so aware now that you know exactly what we can do and we can't do.
And you know, I rewatched it again as preparing for this, and I was amazed as to how much of the movie you could even see and you go very in depth on the what you'd call the police procedure, because you are.
No, it also comes from the fact that you believe the material, And when you believe the material, you want to be honest to it. I would say that I was sometimes, as a filmmaker, I was driven by the material so much that I was stupid that, say for example, I wanted to do everything exactly the way it happened. So the whole sequence of RDX landing, we went and shot we went all the way where it actually happened. In the middle of the night, you shoot anywhere in the ocean. I shoot in the bay here and it will look like India because you can't see anything. But we spent so much effort and time to go exactly where it happened at Srivardhan, and we could have shot it in Warsaw.
Yeah.
So, you know, in that whole kind of a naivety and passion that I want to do things exactly the way they happen and not alter anything. And that drove us to make that film. We actually had no money to make that film, and we would figure out ways to save money. And every day we were changing cities and locations along the coast of Maharashtra, and places that did not have hotels, and we had a crew of 100 people. So we planned the whole film in a way where we were shooting in the night and traveling in the day, so we did not need hotels. It was like we just had 3 luxury buses and we were working from there. So it was a lot of learning we had during Black Friday to create. And Black Friday kind of somewhere shaped the whole filmmaking style that we evolved. Also because 2003 we were creating 1993, and 1993 and 2003 were very different. There were mobile phones, there were satellite television hoardings. We could not shoot the city. I did not have money to create a set of Zaveri Bazaar. So just one night, suddenly you have this moment, Eureka moment, and say like, you know what stops us from shooting at exact locations? And the whole Bombay is my set. And India, we don't have that thing of we need to get release forms signed by people who feature in the film. So we started shooting with zoom lenses in actual locations with real crowd. Everybody you see in the crowd in Black Friday are real people who don't know they're part of a film. So we evolved the whole style of shooting during Black Friday because of lack of resources and wanting to do that film. And that's why the film is the way it is.
It is incredibly fresh, even now after so many years. It's just
that also trained us for Sacred Games, actually.
I was just going to say that because a lot of those, especially when you're like going from place to place and
all the sequence in season 1 where you see Bunty outside the masjid and things, all hidden cameras. All shooting, everything that we did in Black Friday came in handy when we were shooting Sacred Games.
Let's talk about the collaborators. Since you brought up Sacred Games, when I saw it the first time, I had no idea who Nawazuddin was. Then, of course, when I saw it again, I said, wait, he's here also in this movie?
The Sacred Games is a long story. I read the book when it came out. And, of course, we love the book. I also know Sartaj, how Sartaj was a kind of a slightly different character, Love and Longing in Bombay.
Yes.
So we know the whole history of it. And Sacred Games, when it was sent to me the first time, it was Scott Free Productions, AMC.
Scott Free is Tony Scott.
Yeah, they were doing it in English, and it was, I think, 2013, 14. I don't know, Vikram would know better. 2013 or 14?
I couldn't hear you.
No, I'm saying Sacred Games was first with AMC and Scott Free in 2013, 14, right?
Yeah. We spent 2 years in development with AMC.
So it came to me via AMC in 2013, 14. My discomfort was, they had a script in English, and I said, I can't shoot anything in India based in English. And that was our point, and they said, no, we want to do it in English, and we had a lot of discussion at AMC. I was in LA at that time. And then we forgot about it. Then Vikram Motwani was in LA, and he had a meeting with Vikram and Netflix and everyone. And Netflix, I remember, they had acquired Gangs of Wasseypur when it came out, and they serialized it in US. So it came out as a 6-part series on Netflix in the US. Netflix was not in India at that time. And Gangs of Wasseypur kind of became very successful as a series because Netflix first time reached out to me on Facebook. I got a message from Netflix on Facebook saying Eric Baumneck said I'm from Netflix and we want to work with you.
Oh my God.
So I did not take him seriously, obviously, because on Facebook, I don't know where it came. And I replied to him. I said, yeah, sure, but whenever I'm there or you are here, we can talk. And Vikram Motwani was the one who initiated this whole thing. I was not a part of Sacred Games until 2 weeks before the shoot was supposed to start. I came in very late. So the whole creative process was between Vikram Chandra and Varun Grover and Motwani. So I came in very late. Only thing I know was starting with Vikram and the other Vikram and Varun, they were very generous and it's a very rare experience because they allowed me the space to do elements of elements, things I was doing with Cuckoo or things I was doing with Subhadra and elements like that. They just gave me that space and they empowered me to go ahead and do those things.
Was that your decision to, like the Cuckoo scenes, for
No,
example?
they're not my decision. The characters were created.
Cuckoo's a very small character in the book originally.
In the book, it was originally very small character. Varun kind of expanded on it. And I fell in love with the character and I expanded further on it.
Yeah.
But I came in very late. So my thing was by the time I came in, the scripts were drawn out, everything was drawn out. And I had never felt anyone kind of restricting me and I felt there's possibility and I was allowed to explore that possibility. Starting with the author and then Vikram and then Varun who was the key writer. So there's a lot of liberty that was given to explore the things. Also because I know some kind of references when we were like at the time working on Mission Kashmir and ideas sometimes randomly were thrown around in the sense like when I read also say Maximum City, I know where who is what and what Suketu is talking about because when you talk to people, you knew elements. So similarly, I started drawing from that time and from that element, and I had an idea of references, and I felt I can expand on it. And I asked Vikram Motwani, and he said, "Yeah, I don't think so. There should be a problem." And I think Vikram spoke to Vikram Chandra, and Vikram spoke to Varun Grover. And whatever I wrote, I sent it to Varun. I said, can I do this and that? And they allowed me to do that, which is very generous of them. But the entire first 1 year of process of putting it, and expanding it, making it from 2000 to 2017, because the series is set in 2017.
Yeah.
And a lot of ideas would come from Vikram himself. And by the time Vikram, I remember just part of being the mails because Vikram Chandra would get excited, he would send some 10 ideas. Every time. He was himself sending some 10 different ideas. This is what you can do with this character, this is what you can do with this character, this is where you can go. And he himself was rewriting his own book.
I was just going to say,
I was harassing them with lots of ideas and details.
Lots of ideas and details and research. He would say, but this research is not like that. And this is what you can do with it. This is what you can do with it. I was just part of the mail and I was seeing how it became a kind of very exciting process.
yeah, Vikram, it's not always possible for a writer to reimagine the whole story for a new medium. That was pretty exciting. We talked a little bit about that on September 6th when we had the Sacred Games panel. I'd love to hear more about you, this whole transition from book to screen. And you were involved with Netflix. You shared some of those Netflix's documents with me too. How was it as you saw people taking over something that you obviously lived through and you spent a lot of time on? How was it to see it move to a new medium?
Well, it was very exciting. I've worked a little bit on the other side in film. And so I know how annoying writers can be, fiction writers can be, when they try and hang on to what they're doing and they insist that it be done. And it results in really crappy results, right? You do literal translation from one medium to the other, it doesn't work. So I decided quite early that once you give it, then you have to give it fully. There's no point in holding on to it and trying to push people back. And there were a couple of moments when I saw the first drafts of the first episodes where I got quite a haka you know, wait, what have you done to Sartaj? Parulkar was not like this in the book, but when you think about it a bit, it starts to make sense, right? In the novel, Sartaj spends basically the first 150 pages just wandering around the city thinking, right?
Yeah.
So if you spend 3
From case to
episodes
case.
doing that, nobody's going to watch it, including me. So you give it over and trust the people that you've given it over to. And like Anurag was saying, we've known each other for ages, right? And we kept bumping into each other on the streets of Bombay, like year to year, somewhere or the other in some studio. So I know these guys and I trust them.
So that's one of the things that always amazes me, and is the way that you have this collaboration with people. I'm going to just pull up your IMDb page because I'm just, okay, this is when the technology starts getting exciting. So when I go down this and I look at all the things that you have done, and I look at you're a producer, writer, director, actor, miscellaneous script editor, soundtrack, second unit, music department, well, self too, that's great. It is, I'll go back to Vikram's view now. And you've created a whole system, an whole ecosystem around you. And starting from Black Friday too, and the way that you are talking about here with Sacred Games, when there's a confidence and there's a camaraderie and there's a friendship where you trust each other because you are collaborating now. How did that whole transition happen? How did you become a person who did not have anything without, as I said, without any backing?
No, but it is just, it's purely driven by cinema. Like, if you really look at those, say, like you pulled up my producer credit, 59 films as a producer, I must have been an active producer on probably not more than 5-6 films. In the sense, when I started out, and it's like, for example, my first producing credit was Amir and Udan.
Yeah.
So I was a writer on Udan, and Vikram Odwani came to me. Me and Vikram became friends on the sets of Water.
Yes,
So I was the writer on the film, he was the AD on the film. And we became friends on Water when Water was going through a lot of struggle and it did not get made. Yeah. And Vikram was assistant to Sanjay Leela Bhansali. And Vikram wanted to make films. And Vikram is a very difficult person. Vikram Modwani is an extremely difficult person. And he is very non-communicative. And he was my very good friend. And I know and he's taught me a lot. So Vikram taught me photography. He made me buy my first F60. He taught me photography. Vikram was a sound designer on my first film, Panch. And he kind of trained everything. He's also, because he was Bansali's assistant, and I did not know how to shoot songs, so I automatically assumed because he's Bansali's assistant and nobody shoots songs better than Bansali. So Vikram can help me shoot songs. So I made him the director of songs. So Vikram had 2 credits on my first film, Panch. But Vikram's great strength is technology, his sound design. Vikram is the one who introduced Apple to Hindi film industry. And nobody was talking about Apple laptops. So Vikram Modwani taught me a lot, but Vikram is a very difficult person. And Vikram asked me to help him write Udan. And I wrote Udan for him. I said, but what will you do with the script? Because nobody will produce it for you. This is why I said, nobody wants to produce for you. So only way your film will get produced if I become a producer and my films are banned. And I don't understand money, so your film is not getting made. And Vikram laughed at me, but it actually happened. His film did not get produced for the next 4-5 years, till I became a producer for him. So I had to become a producer for him to become a director. And that's how I became a producer. My idea of being a producer is, okay, I can raise this much money, can you make the film with this much money? And that's how Udan got made. And the film Amir, which was again my first assistant, Rajkumar Gupta, and UTV was forming a new company called Spotboy. And Spotboy came to me wanting to make a film, and we were talking about Dave D. And I said, I have this another script, which is very low cost, and they produced Amir. So I was made into a producer, and also I became a producer because studios were coming up, And studios, what they started doing was, they understood directors don't understand money. So they started telling the directors, you become co-producers and you get a back end, so you don't take the fees. And they thought they'll save money on that. And of course, no studio ever gives you back end.
The accounting is always
Yeah.
scheduled.
So I was forced to become a producer because I knew how to pick up people who have the talent. So because I was a casting director, I can know how to pick up actors, I know who will create music, I know who can write, I know who can direct. So I understand these things. And I was never interested in money, so I was a very easy person to be made into a producer. So I was made into a producer because then studios made deals with me and all the newcomers, I kept finding them and kept producing films. And I created a company where because we did not have any money, so we had a kitchen. And we had space. So the idea was you can use the space any which way you want, because I never got out of my house and my room. I never went to the office. So there was an editing setup there, and people would sleep there, and there was a kitchen, everybody can come and eat food there. It was like a dhaba. And we only made one rice and dal and sabji.
Who did the cooking?
There was a cook there.
Okay.
There was a cook there.
Something was outsourced.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the same food. And people started coming in there, and the idea was if you think you can use me to make your film, please make it. And that's how we became a community of films. Like Ritesh Batra made Lunchbox. Ritesh Batra was putting out pamphlets. We went to Cannes Film Festival with Udaan. And next to India, every country has their own counter. Next to India was the Doha counter. The Doha counter was Ritesh Batra putting out pamphlets to invite people to do Doha party. And he met me and he said, I want to make a film. And I said, yeah. And he narrated me a story which is not made till date, which is a great film called The Story of Ram. I said, I want to make this. I said, come to India and we'll talk. By the time he came to India, I was busy with Wasipur. So he was hanging around Bombay, moving in the train, and he found this incredible story of Dabbawalas, and he started sitting down and writing in the office with my people. That became Lunchbox. So that's how it became a very organic way where people started coming together. Yeah, Vasan Bala made Peddlers. And we would just put out on Facebook, we were trying to make this film, this is the amount of money we need. We made very economical movies with very less cost, with people who were interested in wanting to make movies. And at the same time, there's also this blog we were doing, Passion for Cinema, where we would write about how we want to change cinema. So everybody who matters in Indian cinema today comes from that blog. It's Vasan Bala, Neeraj Ghewan, Anand Gandhi, Chaitanya Tamhane, Dibakar Banerjee. Everybody was on that blog. So there were various people in various parts of the world who were passionate about films, who would write on that blog, and that blog, we started connecting with each other.
Yeah.
So it was not conscious. It was very subconscious. It was not planned.
Yeah, I mean, we always wondered, and I know here we're the birthplace of Facebook, but it's just how do these people with similar interests, but there's no way of knowing each other, that you guys exist, that there's an orbit where there are other planets like you, and it's...
Because there are people all over the world that want to make films. I think it only happened because I was not trying to make a business out of it.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely have had no ambition about wanting to become a company or a conglomerate or something. So I just created an atmosphere, and I hated coming to office. So I would work from my room, and we just created a space. And a whole lot of people just collected together. And everybody was doing their own thing. They were just using me, because I used to fight very vociferously on Passion Cinema. I would talk very loudly and shout and fight and for what we as a filmmaker want to do. So somehow everybody managed to do that. So every film got made on its own. They just put my name on it as a producer. Like even today, like when you see a movie like say Muthon, I was never meant to be the producer on Muthon. I was just the writer on Muthon. And then when in the process of filmmaking, you do things for the film because you believe in the film and you love the film. And then everybody says you have to be the producer on the film, and you become the producer on the film. So, but if you see all those films, out of 59 films, as a producer I probably have a fees on only one film. Everything else is free.
what a great way to nurture a culture and nurture an industry that pretty much grew up around you and the kind of movies that you started making. I think people who are watching movies at this day and age in India they know what is an Anurag Kashyap movie and what is the Anurag Kashyap cinematic universe. Since we are
I don't know what that. I don't know what is an Anurag Kashyap. You know, it's like I think people think of the film that looks little Garib is Anurag.
I'm going to, you and I were talking about this book. This is a book called Easy Riders and Raging Bulls. And it's
This is a book that actually helped me figure out how to do things, because this book actually talks about how in the early 70s filmmakers changed Hollywood. And that's the atmosphere I was actually trying to create. That's the atmosphere I was trying to create back home by creating that kind of an office space.
I had read this book soon after it came out, and of course when I got the chance to interview you, and I said, everything that you have done reminds me of this. And
That was my biggest, that's my Bible.
yeah, I was amazed that you obviously, I figured to know about this book. I'm going to just quote one line from here. I mean, this is a great book if you get a chance to read it. This is a Steven Spielberg quote. And by the way, Steven Spielberg went to school here in Saratoga, so there's a local connection too. He was a Saratoga High student. The 1970s was the first time that a kind of age restriction was lifted, and young people were allowed to come rushing in with all the naivete and their wisdom and the privileges of youth. It was just an avalanche of brave new ideas, which is why the 70s was such a watershed. And everything you said kind of reminds me of that.
There's amazing incidents in this book. I remember this book very well. At the time Jaws was being made and Spielberg was a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And he had just made a television film. And they came, Jaws went to everyone and nobody believed in it. And they said Spielberg is the child, he was like a kid in the gang. And the gang was Brian De Palma and Scorsese and Coppola and everything. He said, "Bacha banayega, isko de do." And he made that film, and that's how Jaws happened. This actually is how it was, and that's how the filmmakers were. There's also one point in the book where it talks about how at a traffic signal, there's Coppola and there's William Friedkin and everyone, and the Exorcist is there, and also French Connection is nominated, and Godfather is nominated, some other film, 1 year, and all three of them. And one guy saying, "See, I won the best," from the other said, "But I won the best director." And this is a camaraderie they shared. And those are the people who changed cinema, and they shared their work with each other.
Yeah.
They shared their work with each other. That's exactly, I think, what we were trying to do on a very much smaller scale, because we could not afford to get big studios, and we were forced to develop our own actors. I remember how we all championed Abhay Deol when Manorama 6 Feet Under came out and everything. So all of us decided to champion him. It was just all of us on that one block championing this one guy to turn him into somebody that makes this cinema viable.
Yeah.
And it was those days.
So do you think, we talked about cinema obviously, and that's most of your credits are in cinema, but now that we are in the land of television, and it's in the US we say it's peak TV.
Yeah.
It's because you have Netflix and Apple is coming in, Disney Plus is coming in the next couple of months, Amazon Prime, Hulu. You just have an amazing variety of things to watch, and you could say that all the big directors and the kind of serious movies have moved to television.
It is, I wouldn't even call it television, because, it has its own thing. I think it's still evolving, and it has equalized the game.
Yeah.
So it is not really now anymore about the star system, at least in India it has equalized the game. It is about what you're creating, and slowly it's also developing in a way that where people can probably start streaming and projecting movies from their OTT platforms. People will start watching it on their VR setups, which becomes a very individual movie watching experience. People will start doing it, still evolving, and the reach of it is so much more, and it actually helps filmmakers like us. Like for me, I know when I made a movie like Girl in Yellow Boots, or I made Ugly or Raman Raghav, and it's via Netflix that I realized, it took me a long time to realize that, because anywhere I would go and people tell me they watch my films, I'm like, but where do you watch my film? Because it doesn't show on the box office. Right? And you realize people watch the films online, and then slowly I understood, and it takes a long time to understand that your audience is the educated audience. The educated audience is not the one that's going to stand outside a cinema on a Friday to buy the ticket because they're busy working or studying or doing something. Right? But they definitely watch the film at their own time. And by the time they actually find time, the film might not be available in cinemas. So they wait for the film to come out in some format or the other to watch it. What the OTT platforms have done is they have made the film accessible to my audience at their convenience, at their time, as soon as they have the time. And which has translated to an audience, which has also been monetized now. Yeah. And so the films like Yellow Boots and Ugly and Raman Raghav, they found such a widespread audience on Netflix. Because after the Gangs of Wasseypur was serialized, I remember Netflix picked it up on a trial basis for $10,000. Gangs of Wasseypur. As a series.
What a steal.
Yeah, and we had no other option.
Yeah.
But within a month, they offered us 100,000 more. And slowly the success of it, they started picking up my film. My films were first picked up by Netflix. They picked up each film of mine. And that's when I remember when Eric Barnett reached out to me. It was because of that. And it expanded my audience. And suddenly, like, people started watching my films everywhere. And I know what big role Netflix has to play in it.
Streaming platform and the opportunity to watch a movie made in one part of the world, in another part of the world, in the US, and same with, I think today Netflix has international productions from a lot of different places. I was watching some of Netflix's, 2 days back they had a list of their top watched shows. Stranger Things was #1, but they had 3 or 4 international shows in there, and that's amazing. And on that note, by the way, I know that Sacred Games has been nominated for the International Emmys. So, Vikram, congratulations. I think November 25th. November, somewhere around Thanksgiving, right? I think it's the
25th November. Are you coming?
No. Where? It's in LA?
It's in New York.
New York.
Stuck here for a while.
But yeah, the fact that that kind of recognition is coming out, so that's amazing. I want to talk a little bit on the creative process. We are in a place where probably the most innovation per square foot in the world has happened. A place where when we tell people where we are, right, the example that I have to give, this is Villa Montalvo in Saratoga. Not everybody knows Saratoga. I have to say that we are in between Los Gatos, which is where Netflix is, and Cupertino, which is where Apple is. And, Saratoga has many other things to fame, of course. So I want to talk about the creative process, both Vikram, from you, and I know that you have some very exciting things lined up on that, and then a little bit from you. Where do the ideas come from? So I'll start with you, Vikram. You are at Berkeley. You teach there. Can creativity be taught?
You can't teach talent, but you can teach craft, right? And people in the subcontinent have been thinking about this for thousands of years. And I recently read something that seemed very right to me from the 12th century, where this guy says that you need 3 things. You need pratibha, right? Imagination, illumination that comes from within. You need vyutpatti, which is cultivation, which includes learning and finding the right teachers and constant learning for yourself. And the third thing is you need abhyasa, constant practice. And if all those three things come together, then you have an artist, right? If you're lucky enough to get all these things.
I think first is sometimes a gift, and some we are like we given that. The other two have to be actually practiced and cultured. The other two you kind of acquire in life. First is a gift, and it's important. I think a lot of people have. Everybody is born with a gift. It takes time for them to recognize what the gift is, and luckier are those who recognize it early on. I think I was very lucky that I did not go in and pursue microbiology and become a scientist. Because I think I realized that I see things in my head and I see a film very clearly before I made it. I hear sounds, I do things. I just needed to work on it to hone my skills and cultivate it and practice it every day. That's why I work all the time. I write all the time. I take long flights and I write. So I totally agree with what he's saying.
And I think one other thing that I think is common to a lot of artists is obsessiveness, right? I mean, something catches your curiosity and you go, for years you can go crazy and follow that. It's not very good for your relationships or your partner.
You can't help it. Like, you can't help it. Yeah, it actually doesn't work. I'm twice divorced. So. it doesn't work.
Third time lucky.
Sacrifices that we make.
It's not really a sacrifice. It's difficult because, it's from experience. Like nobody hates me. They all constantly worried and care about me. It's hard to live with you. My daughter wouldn't live with me. So my daughter would say that, it's like, when your eyes go like that, I say it doesn't matter if you're sitting there for an hour because I know you're somewhere else. So it's just those things. When I start walking up and down, nobody talks to me because I know that's my process. When I'm walking up and down, I'm writing. And when I start writing, I can write in the middle of a music concert. I can totally isolate myself. So it's a very strange thing.
It's a rare skill. Especially
it's a skill, but it's a disease in social careers. It's a skill for my work, but to everybody else, it's not a skill. It's like, oh my God, get away.
So writing is your first love. You did, it's amazing that you had, and Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours of practice, and it looks like when you had that opportunity with...
No, I do everything in a moment. For me, writing is also like vomiting. It's like I can, only one way I write is that when I start writing, I finish it. So I don't stop. So it's a problem.
It's perseverance.
No, it's not. It's not really. Perseverance is when you really work hard for something. I don't work hard for it. I just can't help it.
Look, if you don't work hard for all the things that you write and we have seen on the screen, that's amazing.
No, I'm telling you very honestly, because a lot of people say that, how do you do this, that and everything? You just do it because that's all you want to do.
Yeah.
It is not really, you don't have to work hard. When people say, how do you find courage to say things you say? It's not about courage, it's just, you just say it because you feel it. You don't really need courage to speak your mind. You really don't. People who do that, actually, they're not trying to be strong or brave. They just can't be any other way.
Vikram, the writing process. I'd love to know more about Granthika. Apparently you have a tool that helps everyone become a better writer?
Well, I don't know about making you a better writer, but we're hoping it'll make writing easier, right? So, you can imagine, it took me about 10 years to write Sacred Games, and I ended up, in those days I was writing my notes in these thick little reporter's notebooks, and I ended up with about 30 of them, right? And so, managing all that information for a book that's 900 pages long, that has a 60-year timeline, and has more than 100 speaking characters, it can drive you nuts, right? And people coming down to the editing stage, publications coming, and the editor says, can we fact check this paragraph on page 400? And you're like, where did I get that from? I can't remember. So what we're doing is we're building something, writing tool that is an editor like Microsoft Word, but that also stores your characters, your locations, events, and then can reason over these, right? It can infer stuff. So if you try to put the inquest before the murder, it will tell you don't be stupid, right? You can't do that.
Did we also not have a discussion because Kal Granth in Sacred Games 2 was earlier supposed to be called Granthik, and you said, I'm already working on something called Granthik.
Yes.
So we changed his name to Kal Granth.
When I saw that episode thing, I said, no, please don't do that, right?
It would have been a nice plug, though.
So anyway, we have very ambitious plans. So obviously, when you can do that for fiction, you can do it for non-fiction and other kinds of writing as well. So we have very ambitious plans of expanding into other domains like legal writing, scientific writing, anywhere where you're using text to represent complex knowledge.
And will it have like any language? Things we can do it in Hindi, English?
Yeah. Internationalization is definitely in the roadmap.
Yeah, when Vikram and I were talking about this, and obviously Sacred Games with its the complex plot, and I remember when I watched season 2, I had to spend quite a bit of time going over the recaps of season 1 just to figure out what had happened, because obviously the book was no help because everything was different from the book and the show. So watching season 1, reading the book, watching season 2 just completely mixed me up, and then I was thinking, something like this would have been really helpful just to make sense of which character came where. And there was this, Vikram was kind enough to share let me just show you guys something. Okay, I think I'm sharing already. So Vikram, I'm going to show the picture that you sent. So
that's how the writer's room is.
So
when you're writing something. It's a lot of
all of these little chits, and each of them has different storylines and different ideas that one needs to bring it all together. I was remembering, there's this classic of every police procedural where there's this red string, and there are a lot of these photos which are stuck on a wall or somewhere, and I think it's there also in when Sartaj gets this very obsessively chasing after Guruji, and that's kind of what it
that's
was.
how it is. Like,
Yeah.
I remember that because I used to have an assistant called Devashish Makhija during Black Friday, and we sat in a room for 3 days while I was writing the script, where every single, in order, there's a chronological order of how things happen.
Yeah.
And I would be just writing, and I would say, this is done, and he would send me the next, and I would start writing. So after going through all the research, and this is how we used to do things. But it actually is the best way of doing it, and if this is Granthika, then it's great.
It's going to make it much easier. The other image that I was thinking of was Fritz Lang's Dr. Mabuse. This is
or music or anything like that. And it has, what social media has done is social media has made them realize that they are larger in number. We had learned to live with our prejudices. I'm saying we all have prejudices of some kind or the other, but we have learned to live with our prejudices. And social media has actually empowered those prejudices, and they've surfaced, and they have realized that they're much larger in number. And what they haven't got as a privilege, in the sense like by education or by this means or that means, they think it's also, they have a birthright on that. They also want that iPhone. They also want to wear the shoe that probably I have the luxury to buy. They also want that life and they can't get it. And the resentment is so much because it has totally bypassed them. It has totally bypassed them, which is why the world is where it is today. It's very important to understand why we are like this. And since हम लोग जब Twitter पे बात करते हैं, we are nothing compared to how many more people are out there who believe their WhatsApp forwards. Believe it. Yeah, and they believe it because they actually think it's the truth.
Yeah. Especially in election time.
Yeah, and like growing up in a small town, I was taught to believe the printed word. It is so sacred. We were told ki akhbar padho. But I have learned better over the years, but they haven't. So I'm saying the party that has actually understood and worked them has worked with them in a very social way. Like BJP and RSS have actually, more than political, they've been social workers. They have gone and reached out to the most inner parts of the country and socially empowered them and given them a purpose and made them believe they exist and they have a worth, which for years the governments didn't do.
Which is the case, I think, in many countries with
Many
their own
countries,
versions
world
of
over,
the-
world over. It is the case the world over.
I mean, I remember during the earthquake in Pakistan, and I recall that.
And you'll realize the number of people who are unemployed and have no purpose and nothing. And for them, they need a reason and they need to blame it on someone.
If I might add, I think one of the other political techniques which is also being used around the world is to create fear, right? So that if you don't speak up, if you don't hurl abuse, something else even more is going to be taken away from you, right? Which is a big paradox because everyone who does that, on the one hand, claims kind of cultural superiority, right? Kind of grand universal strength. On the other hand, they behave as if one person saying something on the other side of the world is going to bring this whole thing down, right? It's going to shatter it. And that's a very powerful trigger. Right? Once you set that in motion, this paranoia and anger, then you can really handle it in very, very powerful ways.
And it benefits the few people who are controlling it. It benefits very few.
Yep.
I think somewhere our job as a filmmaker or writer or everything is to chronicle it, to document it, if nothing for the future.
Yeah, which is, in your movies, the kind of people that one sees are not the regular people, regular Bollywood people, and that's the part which you like, and the way they talk, the language they use.
I think, but slowly that's changing. I think slowly Indian cinema is growing up.
Yeah.
And a large part to play in that is the OTT platforms.
Yeah.
They are growing up. I'm seeing the success of, say, an Ayushmann Khurrana.
Yeah.
It's just that, because he's playing the actual guy with all his insecurities out there. I'm saying, what are the men's insecurities? Whether it's erectile dysfunction, or loss of hair, anything that does not make them man enough. Every man lives with that insecurity, and Ayushmann Khurrana is thriving on that. And his success says that how the world is changing and how cinema is changing, and people are accepting that. I'm saying, what is Vicky Kaushal's success? Playing the guy who doesn't get the girl, or playing the guy who's as honest and vulnerable and is like that. I'm saying it's not really about being a man and what is the idea of being a man. It's a very false idea of being a man, of being all manly and all out there.
It reminds me of Woody Allen. And
Yeah,
very much
and
inside our
it is
Uber was
changing,
time.
and things are changing. We still love like our Hrithik Roshan. But you know, it's like things are changing.
I tell that to my wife.
Like I remember one actress friend of mine, a senior actress, she came out watching War. I said, my ovaries have burst. Why is this man so sexy? And that's a very honest admission, and I never expected her to say that. I said, you talk to him every day. He said, yeah, but I can't say this to him, I can say this to you. Both works.
Yeah.
One is like a fantasy and the other is like, okay, accessible.
Call me or scream no more. Moving on to a couple of other clips. One of the things I really love is the way you have conversation in your movies. It's very Tarantino-esque. One of the things that we...
I don't know. I don't agree with that. No, everybody says that, but no. I like humor. I like people to talk like people talk. And language. All this guerrilla shooting. All the people in the crowd, they thought that really something is happening.
The reactions are very genuine. That's what it's about.
The Steadicam operator who shot this chase is the man who shot with the operator for the entire Slumdog Millionaire. Danny Boyle hired him to shoot the entire Slumdog Millionaire.
हाँ सर, सर ये इम्तियाज हवा था मेरे सामने सर एकदम, हाँ पाइपलाइन पर सर।
No one has a gun, obviously.
सर
This was- This was not acting, he was really exhausted. I remember reading about that.
He couldn't walk for 3 days.
Things we do for art.
ऐसा तो आदमी लाइफ में दो ही टाइम
रुक जा यार।
Go back a little bit, see me standing. The one in the striped t-shirt is me. Are you watching from morning?
Okay. Wow. But yeah, what a great way to show the whole. I mean, you're right.
This is exactly begins at Lucky, goes through Kalanagar and ends in Mine.
It's a long distance to run. We talked about evil, and obviously this is a movie about evil people. But the movie which made me most scared really was Raman Raghav. What a movie. I'm going to show the trailer from Raman Raghav. There are a couple of, I'll just show us a very, very short scene from there, from the trailer. Obviously it's a trailer, so it's not very long. So, just let me play this and... I'm going to move to somewhere in the middle of the thing.
ऐसा काला सफेद बारी बारी से होता है। अपन क्या है ना, सिर्फ काले पे चलता है। सफेद पे पैर रखे कि मतलब आउट और गिनती करता, उसमें पता ही नहीं चलता टाइम का। तो ऐसे ही अपन काले से काले पे पैर रख के चलने लगे। उधर वो बीच में सड़क आ गया और अपना काला खत्म, और अपने को तो होने का ही नहीं। तो भगवान ने बचपन से मेरे को ऐसा जादू दिया, मैं चोट लगा के सोचता है ना ऐसा, तो वैसे ही दिखने लगता। तो सड़क पे काला सफेद बिस्ता चला, अगर अपन काले पे चलने लगे, वो पता नहीं सामने वो इधर से आ गया।
This was a scene where, just for, if you haven't seen the movie, and this is not a spoiler, it's obviously there in the trailer. So, Raman Raghav Nawaz in this movie, he is his weapon of choice is his iron pipe.
But that came from actual Raman Raghav.
The real Raman Raghav.
He actually used a pipe.
And in this scene, this is his sister's house. And that scene, when he's in that helmet, with the motorcycle helmet, and he just runs like a bull, that brought chills to me when I saw the whole movie.
Yeah, but it's like Raman Raghav. I wanted to make Raman Raghav the original film.
Yeah.
The original biopic, but it was a period film. And it cost a lot of money, and after Bombay, nobody wanted to give me money to make a period film. And I was so dying to make that film. And that was
the two scenes that I want to show. The first one is from Mukabbaz. All right, let's see if this works. So this scene is a coach of...
This is the core of the film.
Yeah, I know, that's what I wanted to... yeah, I think we're having a little bit of buffering. It's the... All right.
This film also, I'll tell you the history of this film. This film came because we suddenly had a lot of sports biopic in India.
Yeah.
And we don't really do biopics. Our biopics are very convenient. Like when they made Dhoni, they like literally just killed away Dhoni's brother who was inconvenient. Or when they make any other biopic, I don't understand what has every sports biopic in India suddenly becomes very patriotic and unnecessarily nationalistic, and it's got nothing to do with that. National anthem starts playing, and it just bothered me so much. So that's why I wanted to do this film, because it's a true story of India as a country that's at the bottom of every Olympics medal tally. And we are making so many false sports biopic. We can't win medals, we can't do things. We do not encourage sportsmen. Barring cricket, no other sports has money. No other sports has any government support, any infrastructure support. Sportsmen are living in poverty. And
selling off their medals, whatever little.
they're selling off their medals and they're nothing. And they've forgotten, totally forgotten.
Yeah. And there's a great scene in this, and I'm sorry that the video is not loading. But there's a great, so this is a movie about a boxer. That's the Mukabbaz. He is Bareilly ke Mike Tyson.
Yeah. And this is the true scenario. People get into sports in India to get a government job.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of getting into sports in India. And films don't talk about that. Yeah. And how when they get into government job in sports quota, the kind of racism they face there and the kind of ostracization they face there. And that's what I wanted to do with this film.
And that's where, and this particular scene asks the coach, and that's the guy who's back.
It is like the whole story of, I've forgotten the name of the wrestler who was barred from the Olympics, the last Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Narsingh Yadav, I think. And saying that he used drugs in his food. And that guy never used drugs. The thing is, every year, the sportsman that represented India in Olympics is the son-in-law of the Federation president. This guy beats him and gets selected, and suddenly there's dope found in him. That's the level of politicization and manipulation that happens in our sports.
Yeah.
And when you go to any of the Olympics and you talk to sportsmen and they'll tell you, all the government officials and their extended families, they travel business class. Sportsmen travel cattle class. The actual people who are representing our country, they put an economy in the back, they put in one dormitory, where all the government officials staying in 5-star hotels. I'm saying everything in India happens like that. Everything in India that's controlled by the government has been happening the same way. Yeah. And it's so important to show that, but movies don't do that. So that's the reason why I wanted to make this film.
Try reloading.
Yeah, no, I did that. I think it's. I'm going to move to my next clip. I'm sorry about that. It's this movie. This particular scene talks about caste, and you talked about the long shadow, and that's how all the caste play. And obviously, all your movies are set in North India, and the caste politics are probably stronger there. And yeah, you're right. I mean, to me, it very much was the heart of the movie. And there's the. I don't want to describe the scene to you, that's futile, but do watch the movie. Mukhaba's got some great songs, and it's got an incredibly powerful actor who was there in Gangs of Wasseypur, was there in Ugly. And, I'm going to do Black Friday, and I'm going to do that famous Black Friday, the chase scene. The reason I want to also show it here is because we talk about, I'm talking about how the shadow of history, and obviously Hindu versus Muslim, and that's the curse that we have. It's and as we saw in sacred games, that can be very, very cynically manipulated for all kinds of ends. And I thought this movie, the whole movie obviously talks about that. It's about the Bombay Blast of 1903. This particular scene has special resonance, and I think Punita, when she was introducing it, also refers to the chase. So. This is a bad guy, one of the suspects, and the police are looking for him.
अरे सुन, इम्तियाज गवाते का घर कहाँ पर है?
साहब मुझे पता नहीं, आप सामने जाके पूछ लीजिए।
तुम्हारे
खाते मिले क्या शरीफ भाई?
गवाते कहाँ रहता है?
हो रहा।
इम्तियाज
गवाते कहाँ रहता है? मालूम नहीं साहब।
हाँ, सर मैं इम्तियाज गवाते मिल गया।
ये वाली पकड़। चल जल्दी। पीछे।
They just can't be any other way.
Vikram, the writing process. I'd love to know more about Granthika. Apparently you have a tool that helps everyone become a better writer.
Well, I don't know about making you a better writer, but we're hoping it'll make writing easier, right? So you can imagine, it took me about 10 years to write Sacred Games, and I ended up, in those days I was writing my notes in these thick little reporter's notebooks, and I ended up with about 30 of them, right? And so managing all that information for a book that's 900 pages long, that has a 60-year timeline, and has more than 100 speaking characters, it can drive you nuts, right? And people coming down to the editing stage, publications coming, and the editor says, can we fact check this paragraph on page 400? And you're like, where did I get that from? I can't remember. So what we're doing is we're building something, writing tool that is an editor like Microsoft Word, but that also stores your characters, your locations, events, and then can reason over these, right? It can infer stuff. So if you try to put the inquest before the murder, it will tell you don't use that, right? You can't do that.
Did you also not have a discussion, because Kal Granth in Sacred Games 2 was earlier supposed to be called Granthika, and you said, I'm already working on something called Granthika.
Yes.
So we changed this name to Kal Granth.
When I saw that episode thing, I said, no, please don't do that, right?
It would have been a nice plug,
the company. So anyway, we have very ambitious plans. So obviously, when you can do that for fiction, you can do it for non-fiction and other kinds of writing as well. So we have very ambitious plans of expanding into other domains like legal writing, scientific writing, anywhere where you're using text to represent complex knowledge.
And will it have like any language things we can do it in? Hindi, English?
Yeah. Internationalization is definitely in the roadmap.
Yeah, when Vikram and I were talking about this, and obviously Sacred Games with its the complex plot, and I remember when I watched season 2, I had to spend quite a bit of time going over the recaps of season 1 just to figure out what had happened, because obviously the book was no help because everything was different from the book and the show. So watching season 1, reading the book, watching season 2 just completely mixed me up. And then I was thinking, something like this would have been really helpful just to make sense of which character came where. And there was this, Vikram was kind enough to share, let me just show you guys something. Okay, I think I'm sharing already. So Vikram, I'm going to show the picture that you sent. So
that's how the writer's room is. So when you're writing something, there's a lot of
all of these little chits, and each of them has different storylines and different ideas that one needs to bring it all together. I was remembering, there's this classic of every police procedural where there's this red string, and there are a lot of these photos which are stuck on a wall or somewhere. And I think it's there also in when Sartaj gets this very obsessively chasing after Guruji, and that's kind of what
that's
it was.
how it is. Like I remember that because I used to have an assistant called Devashish Makhija during Black Friday, and we sat in a room for 3 days while I was writing the script, where every single, in order, there's a chronological order of how things happened.
Yeah.
And I would be just writing, and I would say, this is done. He would send me the next, and I would start writing. So after going through all the research, and this is how we used to do things. But it actually is the best way of doing it. And if this is Granthika, then it's great.
It's going to make it much easier. The other image that I was thinking of was Fritz Lang's Dr. Mabuse, and this is this is a movie from, and I know you're a Fritz Lang fan, but this is a movie from 1933. I saw it earlier this year. At Berkeley, and saw it again. And then
The greatest filmmaker of all time.
yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate that Berkeley was again showing a retrospective of his work. But yeah, just this.
What do you feel like if you're a writer? That's what you feel like sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely correct.
That's
Especially
exactly
when you're researching and writing and something that covers whole lot of time zones. This is what it is.
So I want to move to some of your movies now. I'm going to show some clips. So clips of movies, I mean, obviously you have a huge body of work, so I'm focusing on only the movies that you've directed. I want to show some clips, and these are clips of scenes that kind of resonated with me. And I'd love to ask you some questions around those. So let me start with, well, first let me get on to. Sorry, this part gets a little bit complicated because I have to go through different streaming channels. I did not download anything, mostly because there's a legality issue there. So what I'm going to do here is, let me start with, there's this element of a history lesson in a lot of your movies, especially when you go into the period movies. You talk about what has happened in the past, and you give us Sacred Games of Peace is a great example. There's a whole thing starts before partition, and various people refer back to the partition as the original sin. And I want to show a clip from Gulal, where, yeah, I just need to remember where I have Gulal. Gulal is on YouTube, so let me go into YouTube. And there is a opening scene from Gulal, which I'll show. But I do want to, for Anurag, for Vikram, I greatly appreciate you coming here.
Vikram must be bored.
Can't hear you guys.
Vikram, I'm going to move the camera to the audience, so at least you can see.
Can you ask Vikram
There.
the first two questions and just use the instrument for that?
I'm sure somebody
Vikram, I'm going to leave it to the audience now. There's going to be a mic going around. A couple of things for the Q&A. Please ask a question, not a statement. Make sure there's a question with that. The other thing is, in both of these cases, I know Vikram, Anurag spoke a lot about politics, about what's going on in the broader world. I would like to limit the Q&As to more on his work, on Anurag the artist, on Anurag the filmmaker, and similarly on Vikram the author, Vikram a Bay Area resident, Vikram a technologist, Vikram an entrepreneur, those things. So I'm going to throw the questions open now for Vikram. Obviously Anurag is not here. And any of his work is about Sacred Games, anything else that you would like to know about. Please wait for the mic. So I have somebody there. There we go. Well, the camera's not that good, but.
Hi, Vikram.
Hi.
Can you talk a little bit about the research behind Sacred Games and what inspired you? I mean, it is a story which spans over 60 years and so many characters. But what was the whole process? What inspired you and how deep the research was for you?
So you might probably know that Sartaj actually first appeared in a story in Love and Longing in Bombay, which is a collection of short stories. So at that point, I had gotten to know some policemen, become friends with a couple of them, and my guide through this was my great friend Hussain Zaidi, who's I think India's leading crime journalist and writer. And so then, once I put that book away, this was the time when gang violence on the streets of Bombay was escalating to an amazing degree. My father and I, we lived in North Bombay in Lokhandwala then. One afternoon, we're coming back from the city. Suddenly, we hear automatic weapons fire echoing from the buildings, like 3 blocks from our house. And that was actually that famous shootout in Lokhandwala, which was made into a film later. I'm also grown up around the film industry, so suddenly many of my friends and acquaintances were getting extorted by these guys. Somebody I knew was actually shot in the chest outside his office. He barely survived. So I started to wonder why this was happening. And then started thinking about this. And at that point, I thought I was writing a 220-page thriller, right, in the crime mode. And I was talking to a very senior policeman in Bombay, and he said, no, you can't just do crime unless you understand politics and unless you go to Delhi and talk to these X, Y, and Z. And once he had said that, it seemed obvious, right? Organized crime cannot exist if the political system doesn't want it to. There's a mutual exchange of value, power, money, energy. And then what he was referring to in Delhi, as all over the world, agencies in South Asia use the gangs as extra legal arms, right? So if you're trying to move men and material over a border, he got his systems set in that place for decades. And so the book kept getting bigger, right? Because you can't talk about politics in today's world without talking about religion. So as far as I were people, but people on the other side of the law, people in intelligence, and across the country, Jammu and Kashmir and Bihar, somewhere in Rajasthan, and so forth. So that's where the book took a long time to write. I hope that answered in some way your question.
The video, I think, is causing some of the lagging to happen. I'm going to stop the video and see if I can do this with just the words, and then I need to get a better picture of you for this. All right, this looks good enough.
I have a question back here.
Do you have a mic?
There's a mic coming this way.
There. Yeah.
So this is a
question about your book, Geek Sublime. First of all, thank you very much for recognizing the sublimity of geeks. And secondly, can you say something about what it is that inspired you about that subject? We all understand why Mumbai crime scenes and other fashionable topics like that are written about. Why did you choose to write about this relatively less glamorous demographic?
Do you mean geeks? Come on, we're glamorous. Well, because I'm kind of amateur geek, right? I worked my way through graduate school and supported myself through the writing of my first novel by doing kind of mid-level programming, right? So in Houston, where I went to graduate school, I used to go out to companies.
They know what they want to do with their lives. And I ended up finding better friendships with them and more transparent conversations with them. And somewhere it forever changed the women in my movies, in my life, the way I saw them, and there's so much more to take from them. And I realized how men are children. More often, and when your realization happens to you, then you just can't, you have to see it in your face, you have to confront it. You have to look into the face of it. And it's okay to be confused. And it's okay to not know. And all those things I still grapple with. But there's nothing that I've done with the women character in my movie that I don't see in real life. So nothing is, for me, is fictional or I've created from somewhere else. These are based on women who are role models to me in a way. They're all based on real women. And all those men are also based on real men. So I'm not that creative that I will create something out of a hat. So these are just the women that I admire, I put them on screen. It's the kind of women I would want to interact with, deal with, or even fight with. But no, I would put them on screen rather than somebody who I just think is very boring and just because traditionally the Indian audience likes them.
You're women that take charge. Your men are...
I like women who take charge. I think I need someone who takes charge.
And you'll see that in a lot of the movies. You'll see that in Manmarzia, you'll see that Vicky Kaushal is very impulsive and he is lost, he's confused and...
No, he can't decide, he can't figure it out. But my whole thing is like, it's okay to be Vicky and it's okay to be Tapsi and it's okay to be Robbie. The whole idea what I want to do with things is like, I think that whole idea of a hero who can fight, who can sing, who can dance, who can play the guitar, I don't buy into that. That works well with Hrithik Roshan. Because he is, as it is, a fantasy. That works with the Brad Pitt, you know. I'm saying let Brad Pitt be who he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it really works for me. I would like, we can look at him and I would like, that man makes Brad Pitt sitting in a car smoking a cigarette at a traffic light, makes it look so sexy. We try however hard, we can't make it look like sexy. So no, some people have that, and let's just celebrate them, let's let them be. They will always be fantasy. I'm saying, but it's okay to be who we are. It's okay to be who we are, it's okay to accept them as who they are. But I had the privilege of working very closely together with Hrithik Roshan. No, what we envy him for is his bane in life. It's like that, you know, you walk up to the most beautiful woman and her problem is nobody hits on her. It's a fact. Like you talk to Hrithik Roshan, he never gets proposition.
You shouldn't have told that here.
No, but I'm telling you, these are the facts of life because it's our fantasies and the way we build them in our heads. And then that's separate from our realities. That's why I keep telling people it's very okay to be you, it's fine. And I want to put that in the film. I'm not interested in putting that larger than life character on film.
Which is why your movies have this every movie of yours has a relationship to popular culture in that sense. Right?
Yeah. And for me, like,
I love that character of a Faisal Khan when he's wooing a girl. He in his head he thinks he's Hrithik Roshan, but he can't even get his cigarette right.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one.
We have a question on this side.
I think we have time for just one last question, and it's going to happen over there.
Hi, Anurag. As a director, how do you disengage from the characters that you create, like Raman, Raghav? I mean, it was, for me, just watching the trailer was so disturbing that I didn't want to watch the movie. And how much of you comes into any of the characters that you create, your personality, that is?
No, most of the times what I'm dealing with at that moment, I exorcise myself through the character. So once the movie is done, I have dealt with the character. But it's an exercise I do normally, in the sense I pour in everything. It's like, you empty the vessel and it's always then ready to be filled again. So all my ideas that I'm thinking of in the moment, I put it in that one thing. And then you automatically are open to receive newer ideas, newer things. I deal with them while making the film. The process of it is more important to me. I exercise myself, literally, through my movies. Everything I'm grappling with, I put it in my movies. No, it's actually much simpler. Somebody else pays for it.
Thank you, everyone. I will.
Vikram, thank you. Can you make him larger?
I know. Let me
I
make
need to see
Vikram.
Vikram there.
Let me make him larger than life.
Ah, yes.
I'm happy with this.
It's kind of difficult to follow up, and thank you for everybody here after the bromance which has been going on stage with Anurag, Vikram and Tipu. So I am just going to say thank you, the three of you. Thank you very, very much. I think the people could continue for another hour or so, but I have to do my formal thing. I would like to thank my partners in crime, Mayuranki, Ambika, Dolly, Tushar,